Hey everybody, Matt Barton here with this last week of January's Broker Mint or Two. I hope your January was productive, and I hope you're full throttle coming into 2024. As a principal broker, I get a lot of opportunities to talk with agents and sometimes even their clients about contracts and disputes that arise from them. And although sometimes it is comical, it is also sometimes frustrating, and sometimes, or a good chunk of the time, my frustration is at the agent, right? And part of that is, it seems to me, no matter how many times we say this, people still lose sight of the best strategy, the only strategy worth pursuing in almost all cases, is to avoid litigation, conflict, at a bare minimum, when things go that route, most often our clients, even though we may be in the right, the fact that they are now in something that is contentious, that gives them bad feelings, that gives them sleepless nights, anxiety, whether rightly or wrongly, we get associated with that, and they tend to not be somebody in our SOI very long. Now, I'm painting with a broad brush. I'm sure there are exceptions to that, but that has been my experience over the past 18 years as a principal broker. Remember this: avoidance is the best strategy to pursue. Now, that involves typically negotiation, a little bit of give and take, but it is almost always a better solution than everybody digging their heels in, lawyering up, litigating, and consuming a lot of time, energy, and money. Okay, so there's a lot of origins to where these problems come from, but one that I see quite a bit, and it's been frequently as of late, is people saying, well, we have the purchase contract, but you guys said this in the MLS. And let's start with this. The MLS is a marketing tool, first and foremost. And by the time we're done today, you'll understand, hopefully, exactly the lay of the land with this. The only thing that is really contractual in the MLS is the cooperation of commissions between the two brokers. Everything else is really deemed as a starting point, as a marketing tool. That doesn't take away all of our responsibility for presenting clear and accurate information. That can get us sideways with the Division of Real Estate and other things, but from a contractual standpoint, it's a marketing tool. It's an advertisement, okay? So I want to introduce to you, let me share my screen here, to a legal doctrine called the Four Corners Rule, okay? And basically it says this. I got plenty of highlights, so you can be looking through that as I'm talking to this. But basically it says, if you have a written agreement, you don't get to then go back and use things that were said orally or outside of the contract to contradict the terms that are actually in the contract and signed off by people, okay? If you look further down here, it says basically implies that the only legal parts of the contract are within the four corners, hence the name. We're going to go with what is actually in writing, not what was done in the advertisement, not what was said in a text or an email, not what was said in a phone conversation. Okay? And you can see here are the type of evidence that's not valid. Conversations, written evidence that's not part of the four corners of the contract, emails, texts, etc., MLS, as well as comments made by anybody. Okay, and here I'm going to connect the dot here for you. If you go to our REPC, let me slide this down a little bit. Section 14 is the governing section on this one. And if you come into our contract and negotiation classes, you'd already know this, because we've done 2 of the 3-part series on dissecting the REPC so far in January. We will have the 3rd one, the first training we do in February. Okay, so section 14, I'm just going to read it out loud really quickly. Complete contract. The REPC, together with its addenda, and see if this gels with the Four Corners Rule. It's basically a restating of it. The REPC, together with its addenda, any attached exhibits, and seller's disclosures, which would be everything in section 7, collectively referred to as the REPC, constitutes the entire contract between the party, and here's the powerful language, supersedes and replaces any and all prior negotiations representations, warranties, understandings, or contracts between the parties, whether verbal or otherwise. That is dang powerful contract language. The REPC cannot be changed except by written agreement of the parties. So really what they've restated here is four corners. What is here in this document is what is going to govern, and we just positively affirm that anything outside of that, text, advertisements, MLS, that no longer applies. And the fact that a buyer and a seller sign off on Section 14 when they sign off in the REPC means they accept that. And so, listen, I don't want you to be cavalier and say, gosh, it's not an MLS, right? It doesn't mean somebody's not going to still try and fight you on it. But if you have the need to kind of defend what is in your purchase contract versus what's in the MLS, I would strongly suggest you sit down with your counterpart on the other side politely and read through Section 14. Now, notice this middle section where it says attached exhibits. I'm just going to give you an example of how easily the things in the MLS could be incorporated. So, for instance, if in the REPC I said in Section 9 or 10, where it says additional addenda 9, I could put in there see Exhibit 1 parentheses MLS listing. If I did that and made it an exhibit to the contract, by definition, Section 14 says that it does become part of it, and all the things that are in there then do become contractual. But barring that, the things that's in the MLS do not govern. So if you have some things that are you definitely wanted to make sure we're in the contract or we're covered in the MLS listing, then go ahead and attach it as an exhibit, and it will be in. There's a lot of details to this. I want to come back to what I started with. The best approach is to be if you're the listing agent, make sure you're very clear. When you get an offer over, compare it with what your seller said and counter back if something is incongruent with what either was on the MLS or with what they agree. What happens a lot of times is agents just are so happy to get under contract, whether buyer or seller, that they don't always do a good job in making sure everything lines up. And they figure, well, gosh, if something doesn't line up, we'll deal with it later. It's always a bad strategy. The sooner you can deal with something, get it done up front, the better off you are. I hope that helps. Hope you have a great remaining day of January, and hope February of 2024 is productive for you. Talk to you soon.